The story begins on the night of July 18, 2017, just past 11 p.m. At the Burnaby police station in British Columbia, Canada, an Asian mother reported her 13-year-old daughter, Marissa Shen, missing. Having just returned home from work, the mother soon discovered Marissa was nowhere to be found. As she attempted to reach her daughter, she was met with silence. The phone was turned off. Initially, the police did not take the report seriously. In their minds, it was common for kids at this age to hang out with friends, run out of battery, or deliberately turn off their phones to avoid being tracked by their parents. They assumed once Marissa got tired or ran out of money, she would return home on her own. Yet the mother was overwhelmed with anxiety, insisting that her daughter always returned home before 8 p.m. At her urgent request, the police checked Marissa's phone GPS location, discovering that the last signal had appeared at Central Park. This park, located about an hour's drive away in Burnaby, was a familiar gathering spot for young people in the evenings and not far from their home. The police's initial assumption reinforced their belief that Marissa was simply out having fun. However, the mother remained adamant, her fear palpable as she begged the officers to search for her in the park. Reluctantly, 2 officers agreed to accompany her. By that time, it was nearing midnight, and they ventured into the darkness, armed with flashlights. The trio searched the area multiple times, but there was no sign of Marissa. The police suggested that the mother return home and wait for updates. However, less than an hour later, during a routine patrol in the southeastern part of the park, an officer stumbled upon a pink owl-themed wallet and a powered-off cell phone lying just a meter away. A white piece of paper lay on the ground nearby. When he picked it up, he realized it was a student ID card bearing the name Marissa Shen. The gravity of the situation struck him as he immediately reported the discovery to the station. The officer on duty entered the name Shen into their system, and within moments, the missing person report filed by Marissa's mother appeared on the screen. This was the pivotal moment when the police began to take the case seriously. They quickly mobilized additional units, search teams, and requested rescue support. At 1:00 a.m., officers found Marissa's body just a few dozen meters from where her wallet had been discovered. The medical examiner estimated that she had died roughly 3 hours earlier, around 10 p.m. on that hot summer night. Marissa's life tragically ended at just 13 years old, a life that would never return to the classroom for the September semester. No one felt the weight of this loss more than Marissa's mother. In the aftermath of her daughter's disappearance, she had called Marissa nearly 40 times, her desperation palpable. At Marissa's funeral in early August, her mother was so grief-stricken that she could barely stand, continuously stroking her daughter's body in the casket. In a heart-wrenching moment, Marissa Shen's mother attempted to rouse her one final time, echoing the morning routine they had shared since immigrating from China to Canada just a year earlier. They were each other's support system, dedicated to providing Marissa with the education she needed as she prepared to transition into middle school. Her mother juggled multiple jobs, often laboring late into the night. Marissa, a kind and responsible child, took her studies seriously. During summer vacation, she attended extra classes in the mornings and returned home to cook meals after school. Typically, she spent her afternoons at home, either playing on her phone or engaging in arts and crafts. Occasionally, she would venture to a nearby cafe to use the free Wi-Fi, but she was always careful to return home before darkness fell. Meanwhile, police began collecting security camera footage in hopes of piecing together her last known movements. The focus shifted to the hours between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. The footage revealed Marissa leaving her apartment around 6 p.m., making her way toward a nearby Tim Hortons cafe. Calm and relaxed, she was seen enjoying her food, sipping her drink, and engaging with her phone. After spending roughly an hour and a half there, she rose to leave, taking a moment to tidy up her table. In a gesture of kindness, she held the door open for an elderly customer entering the cafe. At that moment, the clock struck 7:40 p.m. If Marissa aimed to be home by 8 p.m., the fastest route led through Central Park in Burnaby. Unfortunately, this path lay within a surveillance blind spot. Satellite images indicated the area was densely wooded, devoid of streetlights, and seldom traversed at night. Tragically, this would be the last route Marissa would ever take. Just hours later, her lifeless body was discovered along that very path, marked ominously in red on the map. The question loomed: what transpired in the hours between her last contact and the moment of her murder? Initially, the police withheld critical details. However, An autopsy report later revealed horrifying truths. Marissa's pants had been forcibly removed, her genital area bore multiple tears, and the cause of death was determined to be mechanical asphyxiation. The sheer agony and despair she must have faced in her final moments were unimaginable. As the community grappled with the tragedy, outrage turned swiftly to fear, prompting young women to avoid venturing out alone at night. Families with young daughters felt the need to take time off work, ensuring they were present to pick up and drop off their children daily. Some even withdrew their daughters from summer classes entirely, bowing to the intense pressure that gripped the community. The police found themselves at a standstill. With no surveillance on the deserted pathway and no witnesses to the crime, they were left with no leads. Officers embarked on an exhaustive effort, interrogating over 2,000 individuals. They canvassed local residents, but each inquiry yielded little more than frustration. The crime scene, a canvas of gravel and fallen leaves, obscured any potential evidence, making it nearly impossible to recover complete footprints. No hair, fingerprints, or significant fabric fibers were discovered at the scene. The sole evidence linking the perpetrator to the crime was a semen DNA sample found within Marissa Shen's body. Unfortunately, a cross-check against the criminal database revealed no matches, leaving investigators in a frustrating dead end. Faced with dwindling options, the police launched public appeals for information while also collecting photos and videos from Marissa's funeral and memorial services. In the realm of criminal psychology, it is known that some individuals attend such events for a perverse sense of satisfaction. However, this strategy yielded no leads. More than 90 individuals were scrutinized and placed on a suspect list, yet all were eliminated through DNA mismatches. The clock was ticking as the statute of limitations loomed dangerously close to expiration within a year, and still the killer roamed free. The residents of Burnaby, particularly those within the Chinese community, grew increasingly anxious. They began hanging posters throughout the city, especially in areas surrounding Central Park, alerting the public that a murderer remained at large. Upon realizing that the city government had yet to install security cameras in the park, a group of young men and middle-aged Chinese volunteers took matters into their own hands. They formed a patrol team, cycling through the park daily to ensure the safety of women and children. In a desperate bid for progress, the police turned to an experimental technology, forensic DNA phenotyping. This cutting-edge method promised to determine a suspect's hair color, height, race, gender, and even facial features through genetic analysis. Scientists could analyze a DNA sample and reconstruct a potential suspect's face using computer modeling. However, the fluidity of human appearance, influenced by environmental factors, raised questions about the accuracy of such reconstructions. Skepticism surrounded this technology, both from the academic community and the public. Critics argued that its accuracy was insufficient and posed a risk of wrongful arrests, fueling debate over its reliability as a tool for justice. Concerns also emerged regarding privacy violations and the potential misuse of authority by law enforcement. Consequently, despite over a decade of research, forensic DNA phenotyping had yet to gain acceptance as a standard investigative method. However, by 2018, the narrative shifted dramatically when the Golden State Killer was apprehended after evading capture for 44 years. Comparisons between a genetic composite sketch and the actual suspect revealed a striking resemblance, disregarding minor details like chubby cheeks and a receding hairline. Facial proportions, size, and shape matched closely, with an estimated resemblance of around 80%. Another fugitive, William Talbot, also surfaced around this time, and comparisons showed that despite weight gain and baldness, his facial features and skin tone aligned closely with the genetic composite. These successes led many to reconsider the reliability of the technology, igniting a flame of hope within the investigative team assigned to Marissa Shen's case, especially since the suspect's DNA had been collected less than a year after the horrific crime. With renewed determination, the team pressed forward, eager to unravel the mystery and bring justice to Marissa Shen, whose life had been tragically cut short. The search for her killer was far from over, and hope lingered like a shadow in the hearts of those who sought the truth. The precision of the genetic sketch was notably enhanced by the absence of factors such as aging, weight gain, or hair loss. The analysis suggested that Marissa's killer was likely between the ages of 25 and 35. He was characterized by dark hair and eyebrows, light brown skin, an elongated face, a prominent nose, and a cleft chin. Most strikingly, the DNA analysis indicated that the suspect hailed from the Middle East. More specifically, he was linked to northern regions, including Syria, Lebanon, northern Turkey, and a small part of Iraq. This crucial information significantly narrowed the suspect pool, deftly avoiding the pitfalls of racial profiling. Rather than releasing the genetic sketch to the public, the police opted to circulate it discreetly within select Middle Eastern communities and organizations in the area. Their strategy had two objectives: to gather leads and to encourage young men with similar features from these communities to voluntarily provide DNA samples, aiding the investigation and proving their innocence. The police, however, were acutely aware that the actual killer would likely never submit his DNA voluntarily. Yet the prospect of identifying a direct relative remained a significant breakthrough. Fortune smiled upon them when, in August 2018, the lab reported a familial match among over 300 voluntary samples. Although this match was not direct, it traced back to a distant relative within 3 generations. When the news broke, the police experienced a mix of excitement and frustration. Middle Eastern families often boast large sizes, with 20 cousins and 40 extended relatives, complicating the task of investigating each individual. However, shortly after, a significant discovery reignited hope within the police investigation. They uncovered that within the family linked to the DNA match, only one male relative met the criteria outlined in the genetic sketch. This family, having recently sought refuge in Canada from Syria just over a year ago, had not yet expanded their family tree, providing the police with a crucial advantage that saved them valuable time and resources. The investigation soon turned its focus to Ibrahim Ali, the sole suspect, a 28-year-old single man employed as an exterior decorator for a construction company. Ali had no prior criminal record and, crucially, had rented an apartment less than 700 meters from Central Park, the very site where Marissa met her tragic end. It required little effort for the police to procure a DNA sample from Ali's discarded household trash. Upon analysis, it revealed a perfect match to the DNA found on Marissa's body. Armed with this irrefutable evidence, the police swiftly apprehended Ali at his construction site, charging him with first-degree murder after a harrowing year and 2 months of investigation. The perpetrator's arrest marked the end of one chapter, yet it unveiled the beginning of a harrowing 5-year ordeal within the judicial system. As the news broke, mainstream media sought to downplay the suspect's refugee status. However, this case ignited a fierce public outcry. The controversy stemmed from a growing skepticism among Canadians regarding the government's decision to welcome 25,000 Syrian refugees. Many questioned whether this influx was merely a financial burden or a looming threat to public safety. In response, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had assured the nation of their absolute safety, bolstering his claims with a detailed outline of the criteria for refugee acceptance. The evidence against Ibrahim Ali was damning. His DNA matched perfectly with the sample taken from Marissa Shen's body. Armed with this irrefutable proof, police swiftly apprehended Ali at his construction site, charging him with first-degree murder. After a year and 2 months of relentless investigation, the truth had finally surfaced. Yet, the arrest was merely the catalyst for an agonizing 5-year journey through the judicial system. Initially, media outlets downplayed the refugee aspect of the case, but the public's outrage was palpable. Canadians were deeply divided, their concerns rooted in the belief that the government's decision to accept 25,000 Syrian refugees not only strained resources, but could also jeopardize community safety. At that time, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had confidently reassured the public, reiterating the stringent criteria established for refugee acceptance. Despite these assurances, skepticism loomed large. Many Canadians feared that the influx of refugees could compromise the safety of their neighborhoods. The government's stance emphasized prioritizing families, particularly women and children, while suggesting that men should remain in Syria to defend their homeland. This raised a glaring question: how did a single 28-year-old man like Ibrahim Ali manage to enter Canada? The media felt compelled to investigate further. Their investigation uncovered a startling revelation. Ibrahim Ali had entered Canada through a private sponsorship program, a route starkly different from the government's refugee resettlement initiative. The crucial distinction lay in the requirements. As long as an individual or organization pledged to cover all expenses, housing, resettlement, healthcare, food, and basic living costs, the sponsored refugee could bypass the government's stringent criteria regarding gender, age, or family composition. While this might have appeared to resemble a pay-to-play system, the reality was far more complex. For example, a typical family of 4 required sponsorship funds ranging from $80,000 to $100,000 Canadian dollars annually, or even more, depending on the specific living costs of their chosen Canadian city. The minimum sponsorship period was 1 year, but it could extend up to 3 years, complicating the narrative of refugee entry into Canada. Despite the significant financial challenges, the generosity and charitable spirit of Canadians shone brightly. A notable collaboration emerged when Wesley United Church in Vancouver joined forces with residents of Bowen Island to sponsor a Syrian family of 6. This family was specifically chosen because they had a relative already residing on Bowen Island, a member of the church community. When the Syrian civil war erupted, this relative understood that attempting to navigate the government refugee program to bring their entire extended family to Canada would be a lengthy and competitive process. Instead, they discovered that private sponsorship offered a more secure and attainable alternative. This relative was exceptionally skilled at fundraising, and soon a heart-wrenching article detailing the plight of this war-displaced Syrian family graced the front page of a local Bowen Island newspaper, paired with haunting images of bombed-out landscapes in Syria. The article sparked an outpouring of sympathy from the community and ignited a surge of donations to the church's efforts. During a poignant sermon, the pastor proclaimed, "A relative of the church is our relative," framing the donations as offerings to God. The congregation responded with eagerness, contributing generously. Their combined efforts quickly amassed an astonishing $650,000 Canadian dollars. They secured housing on the island, furnished the home, arranged transportation, and enrolled the children in school and daycare, meticulously orchestrating a warm welcome at the airport. With such an abundance of donations, final calculations revealed in excess of $50,000. Inspired by this windfall, the relatives considered bringing over a younger brother who was single. Thus, plans were set in motion to use part of the surplus funds to assist in his relocation. This younger brother was none other than Ibrahim Ali, who would later become the perpetrator of Marissa Shen's tragic murder on March 2, 2017. The group of 7 arrived in Canada, greeted at the airport not only by family but by church representatives and residents of Bowen Island. A photograph capturing their arrival at Vancouver Airport was featured in the local newspaper. The following day, the article celebrated them as a touching testament to Canada's spirit of generosity. However, Ibrahim Ali did not settle on Bowen Island as his brother's family had. Instead, he strategically utilized the sponsorship funds to enroll in English classes in Burnaby and rented a modest apartment. With a place to call home, access to education, and spending money, Ibrahim enjoyed a lifestyle that many international students working part-time could only dream of. With the sponsorship funds, he seized the opportunity to enroll in English classes in Burnaby, securing a small apartment to call his own. This newfound stability provided him with a place to live, access to education, and spending money, a lifestyle many international students working part-time could only dream of achieving. For Ibrahim Ali, life had always come too easily. Just 4 months after arriving in Canada, he succumbed to darker impulses, extinguishing the innocent life of Marissa Shen. The gravity of his actions was compounded by the fact that only 3 months before his arrest, he had returned to Bowen Island, celebrating a joyous reunion with his brother's family on the 1-year anniversary of their arrival in Canada. This event was splashed across local newspapers, a stark contrast to the horror that would soon unfold. In the photographs from that reunion, Ibrahim appeared more confident and relaxed than he had a year prior. No one could have imagined the guilt he carried, a murderer cloaked in the facade of normalcy, the very story that brought Canada to tears. The case ignited a firestorm of public outrage, with many directing their anger at Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Critics recalled his assurances that welcoming refugees posed no threat to public safety, demanding answers for the tragedy that had unfolded. In the face of mounting criticism, Trudeau offered an official response during an interview with Maclean's magazine. He expressed his heartbreak for Marissa's family and friends, acknowledging that any murder is a profound tragedy. He asserted his faith in the justice system, believing it would ensure appropriate punishment while safeguarding the public. Though polished and professional, his words felt hollow, lacking the weight of decisive action. What incited further frustration was Trudeau's demeanor during the brief statement. As he spoke, his mouth twitched into a restrained smile on multiple occasions, an expression that many found inappropriate given the context of the tragedy. In the aftermath, headlines erupted across news outlets with phrases like "Trudeau's first response to refugee murdering Chinese-Canadian girl includes multiple smirks," igniting a wave of public backlash. Yet, some defended him, arguing that throughout the entire 60-minute interview, his facial expressions appeared as if influenced by a cosmetic procedure rather than a reaction to Marissa's case. Supporters of Trudeau contended that it was unfair to label him as mocking Chinese Canadians. However, the debate over his expression quickly became a trending topic, with fervent discussions erupting online. While critics pointed out the troubling nature of his inability to control his expressions, it was his seemingly indifferent attitude and reluctance to accept responsibility for the tragedy that left many feeling unsettled. Some believed that he was dangerously close to suggesting that Marissa's murder was outside his jurisdiction, implying it was not a matter for his government. Faced with this unfolding situation, one couldn't help but wonder how the legal system, which Trudeau had so confidently endorsed, would handle the case. Initially, Ibrahim Ali rejected the prosecution's plea deal for second-degree murder, vehemently insisting on his innocence. This refusal led him through 5 different lawyers, each time searching for one tenacious enough to secure his acquittal. Yet, as the investigation unfolded, it became clear that there was something unsettling beneath the surface. His struggle to control his facial expressions spoke volumes. His indifferent demeanor and evasive attitude in confronting the tragedy were glaringly evident. Many observers noted that he seemed just shy of outright declaring, "This wasn't someone my government accepted, so it has nothing to do with me." This led to a pressing question. How had the supposedly reliable legal system, as mentioned by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, managed the complexities of this case? Initially, Ibrahim Ali rejected the plea deal proposed by the prosecution for second-degree murder, resolutely maintaining his innocence. This steadfastness compelled him to cycle through 5 different lawyers, each time searching for one aggressive enough to secure his acquittal. With no funds to secure legal representation, Ibrahim Ali found himself reliant on public defenders. These attorneys, appointed by the court, provided their services free of charge to him, though their compensation ultimately came from taxpayers. The final attorney selected to represent Ali was Kevin G. McCullough. With 3 decades of experience in handling murder cases and serious crimes, McCullough was a seasoned veteran in the courtroom. His law firm's website listed his hourly rate at $300 Canadian. With even higher fees for appearances in court, each time Ali changed lawyers, it necessitated a comprehensive review of the entire case file. Legal arguments had to be rewritten, and the new attorney would invariably request delays, citing the need to become acquainted with the details of the case. The accumulation of these legal fees for Ali was staggering, a financial burden compounded by the complexities of his situation. While the choice to hire a lawyer hinged on the availability of funds, the search for an interpreter posed a far greater challenge. Ali's claims revealed a disheartening reality. He did not speak English or French, nor even Arabic, the official language of Syria. Instead, he communicated solely in Kurdish, a language that added layers of difficulty to his defense. Kurdish is a rare language, and Ali's inability to read or write it further complicated matters. The scarcity of certified Kurdish interpreters in Canada, coupled with their high fees, heightened the obstacles he faced. Each consultation with his lawyer mandated the presence of an interpreter, which meant that meetings could only occur when one was available. If an interpreter failed to attend a trial or hearing, the entire session would be postponed, adding yet another layer of frustration. For lawyers and interpreters who charged by the hour, these delays translated into increased earnings. However, for Ali, the time spent in pretrial detention was a grim reality, as it would count toward any future prison sentence. At a rate of 1.5 times, this meant that from the moment of his arrest in 2018 until his trial in 2023, 5 years would be credited as 7.5 years against any eventual prison sentence, turning his time behind bars into a troubling economic advantage. Consequently, delays orchestrated by Ali and his legal team prolonged the trial, only for the COVID-19 pandemic to bring all court proceedings to a standstill. It was not until April 2023 that a trial date was finally established. By then, nearly 6 years had passed since the tragic murder of Marissa Shen. In memory of her, a memorial bench was erected in Central Park, her final destination. Engraved with the poignant words, "Boundless love, endless longing, may we hold hands in the next life." This heartfelt tribute from a grieving mother moved many to tears. On April 5, 2023, the long-anticipated trial for Marissa Shen's murder commenced. The jury, consisting of 12 members, featured a diverse composition, with half of its members of Asian descent and more women than men. Yet even this long-awaited trial was not without its challenges. A significant setback arose when the court-appointed interpreter tested positive for COVID-19 and had to self-isolate. Amidst this turmoil, a juror was forced to leave for a funeral, following the death of a family member. Meanwhile, Ibrahim Ali continued to stir trouble, claiming that during his time in custody, he had developed schizophrenia, suffering from delusions and severe headaches. He argued that the medication prescribed to him impaired his memory and judgment. Using this as a pretext, he frequently requested medical leave and demanded delays in the trial. Consequently, the trial dragged on in a disjointed manner for over 5 months. Then, without warning, shocking news erupted outside the courthouse. Tracy Pickett, the prosecution's forensic expert, had been found dead in a forested area of South Vancouver. This location lay approximately 18 miles from Central Park, where Marissa Shen had been murdered. Following an investigation, police determined that this was not a homicide but a case of self-inflicted harm. Their reasoning centered on the fact that Pickett had long struggled with depression, and her role in Marissa's case had dredged up painful memories. This tragic conclusion led to the belief that Dr. Tracy Pickett had taken her own life. Yet this determination ignited a firestorm of controversy. Friends and family insisted that she had been actively receiving treatment for depression and had shown significant signs of improvement. As the former director of the British Columbia Women's Hospital Sexual Assault Treatment Center and president of the Forensic Association, Tracy was neither the first nor the last victim linked to a sexual assault homicide case she had worked on. The most pressing question lingered in the air. How could a responsible and seasoned forensic expert, who had testified in court just the day before, suddenly abandon everything and redirect her vehicle towards a remote location to end her life? Despite the suspicious circumstances surrounding her death, police ultimately closed the case based on their initial conclusion. Meanwhile, Ibrahim Ali's defense attorney wasted no time exploiting the situation to his advantage. He swiftly filed a motion to dismiss the jury and postpone the trial, citing the death of a key witness. However, this time his efforts were met with failure after careful deliberation by the court. The judge ruled that the trial would proceed, though Dr. Pickett's earlier testimony was stricken from the record. Yet even with her statements removed, the jurors could not erase the memories of her presence, the mysterious circumstances of her death. The judge maintained that the trial would continue with Dr. Pickett's previous testimony removed from the official records. However, the jurors' memories of her testimony remained vivid. In fact, the enigmatic nature of her death. This only intensified their pursuit of justice, and the trial began to shift against the defendant. Perhaps sensing his growing disadvantage, the defense attorney resorted to a desperate and unscrupulous tactic, the most shameless strategy available in a courtroom. In a chilling display of manipulation, the defense attorney sought to tarnish Marissa Shen's reputation, fully aware that she could not rise from the grave to defend herself. He painted her as a troubled girl, mired in a rebellious phase, suggesting a peculiar relationship with her mother. He argued that Marissa often roamed the city, unwilling to return home. He emphasized the emptiness of her wallet, insinuating that she was frequently broke. In a deeply troubling implication, he suggested that she might have engaged in sex work to make ends meet, hinting that her interaction with Ibrahim Ali could have been consensual. The attorney contended that while Ali's actions were morally questionable, he was not her killer. Instead, he claimed Ali merely pulled up his pants and walked away after the act, leaving the door open for the possibility that someone else was responsible for Marissa's tragic end. The defense's outrageous claims and blatant manipulation of facts ignited fury both inside and outside the courtroom. Hundreds of Chinese Canadians took to the streets demanding justice for Marissa and expressing outrage at the blatant disrespect shown to her memory. Online, the backlash against the defense attorney was swift and unforgiving. Many condemned his unethical tactics, accusing him of sacrificing moral integrity in his desperate bid to win the case. The anger escalated, with some individuals resorting to extreme measures in response to his actions. Faced with such shameless tactics, the prosecutor delivered a cutting rebuttal. He dismantled the claim of a strained family relationship as a mere fabrication, asserting that it was typical for teenagers to occasionally voice frustrations about strict parents without negating their deep-seated care for one another. The more than 40 desperate calls made by Marissa's mother after discovering her daughter was missing stood as undeniable proof of their bond. Marissa's father and older brother traveled from China, enduring the emotional turmoil of reliving their loss each day in the courtroom. The prosecutor swiftly dismissed the defense's ludicrous assertion that Marissa wandered the streets at night and sought shelter in parks. He argued that if Marissa had truly intended to avoid coming home before 8 o'clock, she would not have taken the shortcut through the park, nor would she have crossed paths with Ali. According to the defense's absurd theory, after Ali assaulted Marissa and walked away, an entirely different murderer coincidentally found her lying in the bushes, clothes disheveled, and decided to take her life. What were the chances of such a cruel coincidence? Finally, the prosecutor urged the jury to hold their breath for 2 minutes, to grasp the agonizing duration of time one suffers when breath is taken away. This was the very length of time Ali had suffocated Marissa, covering her mouth and nose until her life slipped away. From the outset, Ibrahim Ali had intended to end her life. It was this chilling premeditation that haunted the case, underscoring the most horrifying aspect of this tragedy. When Ibrahim Ali spotted Marissa rushing home through the park, her fate was already sealed. Despite the prosecution's devastating arguments, the defense made one final, desperate attempt just before the jury was set to render their verdict. In a dramatic turn of events, the defense attorney made a startling announcement in court. He revealed that his life had been threatened, producing a chilling letter discovered in his mailbox. The letter ominously warned that he would meet a horrific end, and that his family would also face a gruesome fate. The attorney noted that the writing style and grammar bore a striking resemblance to what many referred to as Chinese-style English. This led him to suggest that the supporters of Marissa Shen might be behind the alarming threat. He insisted that the public outcry surrounding the case had unfairly swayed the jury, jeopardizing the integrity of the trial. On these grounds, he implored the judge to declare a mistrial, nullify the jury's decision, and reschedule the case for a retrial. The judge, however, dismissed this outrageous request without hesitation. Each matter had its own procedural path, he stated. If the attorney was indeed under threat, the appropriate course of action would be to report it to the police, allowing law enforcement to conduct an investigation. With the trial now in its final stages, the judge questioned how they could simply cancel it. What purpose would 6 months of proceedings serve? Ultimately, the jury reached a verdict, convicting Ibrahim Ali of first-degree murder and sentencing him to life in prison. The sentence included no possibility of parole for 25 years. Yet, shortly thereafter, another shocking twist emerged. The police abruptly halted the sentencing hearing, citing a security threat within the courtroom. Authorities arrested a man present at the trial, discovering a loaded firearm in his possession. While the man's identity remained undisclosed, witnesses confirmed that he was closely tied to the victim. That man was revealed to be none other than Marissa Shen's father. His motives for bringing a weapon into the courtroom were shrouded in mystery, but it was highly likely that he intended to confront either the defendant or the defense attorney. In a country without the death penalty, it appeared that Marissa's father sought to exact justice himself, right there in the courtroom. This impulsive action added yet another layer of complexity to an already convoluted case. The defense attorney once again raised alarms about threats to his life, demanding that the trial be halted, the verdict overturned, and a retrial ordered. Meanwhile, an appeal was simultaneously filed. Amidst this turmoil, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's previous statement resurfaced, garnering public and media attention. "Trust in our legal system. It will deliver a fair outcome for everyone." Some suggested that an additional statement should be made. If the legal system failed to achieve justice, they warned, someone might take matters into their own hands. After a tumultuous back and forth between prosecution and defense, on December 8, 2023, the British Columbia Supreme Court delivered its ruling. Ibrahim Ali was found guilty of first-degree murder in the tragic case of Chinese-Canadian girl Marissa Shen. He was sentenced to life in prison, with no chance of parole for 25 years, despite persistent appeals from the defense. The ruling remained unchanged, marking what could be seen as a long-overdue victory. After a marathon trial that stretched over 6.5 grueling months, the proceedings finally drew to a close. Yet the verdict felt like a hollow triumph, arriving far too late for those who sought justice. The victim's family, along with countless others yearning for justice, endured a painful 6-year wait. If Marissa Shen were still alive, she would be celebrating her 20th birthday today. In a case steeped in tragedy, justice, though finally served, brought with it an indelible sorrow. What are your thoughts on this heart-wrenching case? We invite you to share your reflections in the comments below. For now, we bid you farewell and hope to see you in our next video.